Welcome to Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet. Join Janet and her friends as they gather at the intersection of consciousness and self-experience, what being consciousness in human form is all about. Access heart-centered awareness with them and feel the difference in the moment that will last a lifetime.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Janet Barrett, and this is Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet. In our podcast series, we are going to explore what being alive really means, not the watered-down version of life so many of us live, but as active, dynamic, creative life forces, always in motion, always in thrall, always in some sort of rhythm, no matter what our lives seem to be. My friends who will be joining me and I will be presenting perhaps new ways, different ways for you to look at this thing we call life. Traditional ways of thinking of ourselves can often leave us with a sense of not quite right, not fitting the square peg into the round hole, or maybe it's the round peg into a square hole, or sitting outside the group. A wallflower waiting to be asked to be danced. Whatever the feeling, it will direct our lives, and we can get swept up in the feeling that it must be us that is wrong, and not the systems or environments, when it is the opposite that is the truth. Along with a different friend each episode, we're going to enjoy all the diversity of consciousness, how energy can take any form and non-form to experience, how our sensory systems interact with our conscious and unconscious filters, and how we are much more than we think we are, and at the same time, much less. What do I mean when I say consciousness? Just what are we talking about? We might use different language, but common to all of us is this, not as belief, but as personal truth. We are all talking about what we each hold as our essence as living creatures. I'm going to call it consciousness, and not God, source, universe, chi, or even cabbage. Though I must say, cabbage is good, because you ask, what is she talking about? And that is a great place to be in, a state of curiosity, the unexpected, and you are tantalized. I use the term consciousness as it is free of morphic field energy. It doesn't have thousands of years of human intention, desires, belief, etc., creating and crafting what all the other words have in them these days. Human reality is malleable. We will share with how living in alignment with this is center. Your life is different. Life can become easier. If you so choose it to be, there is less confusion. Your day-to-day reality starts to change in real ways. You realize that life is always about choice. It's a never-ending ride of choices to be made, consciously and unconsciously. Spirituality and religions have become objects at times, filled with form, and in that, dogmas. We become followers who believe in something as opposed to living as. What I have come to learn is that there is no thing, any one thing, to believe in. Life is the art of just being. I don't want to believe in something. I want to be. I have no goal for us. I am providing a container, an access point for you to indulge in while listening that will continue long after the episode is over. In this container, you will feel things soften, become malleable as we access the state of potential that is consciousness. You will become aware of something is different in those, for you, new to this conversation and this sensation. And if you don't come to this awareness, it doesn't matter. And I'll explain that later. I know that consciousness, heart-centered awareness, the field of unified consciousness, is real. I know it from my place of essence, which is my core, and I have knowledge of, which is mind-oriented. These are two different things that we'll be playing with over this series and coming to understand better. We will consider our rules about life. We each have life rules, rule sets, mindsets, realities that are unique to us as individuals and subject to outside influences and dynamics. Over the coming episodes, we will be talking about the power of our thoughts, the drives in our emotions, and how this humanity as self intersects with our essence as consciousness. I am so excited that you are joining me. On our podcast episode page, you will find more to look at than you will hear. Each episode will feature a topic me and a friend will share about and explore. You will find words we've used and perhaps more about them to contemplate. My wonderful husband, Tom Barrett, will be providing a meditation to the topic out of his interlude and internet retreat archive. I know you will want to visit him there. Tom is a published author and well respected in his field of mental health and embodies the values of meditation and being human. You will meet my revolving band of friends who each week will individually join me, and more information about references both important to the conversation. I will offer a consciousness cookie, a couple of thoughts, another bit of clarity to enjoy. And in case you need a disclaimer, here it is. I am not an expert about anything. Many of my friends you meet here will be. What I am an expert in is being me, Janet, and I am an energy empath. I feel energies in physical terms of words, emotions, thinking, you name it. I register essences and not always the facts, which we know can be different in different realities. Energy empath is not a title that gets a lot of notice or appreciation at times, and it certainly made a painful living hell for some years, but here I am. I do hear words, see numbers and sparkles and the like, and recognize much outside of human reference. And now, on this side of death and illness, I live in a state of deep, deep appreciation for life. I know how powerful we each are in being able to change how we think, and the power in not listening to others over one's own connection, and the power in freeing up what I think it is all about. In our minds, we have taken positions of authority of each other, shared living space with other creations on this small pale blue dot, and that dot itself. In our minds, we have sovereignty over all. This is a fallacy. By the time the human life form showed up on this planet, it was really Johnny-come-lately. Life had been going on for billions of years. Ice ages came and went. Dinosaurs came and went. Beachfront property was a lot less in space than it is now. Earth was being, and just fine, thank you. Human references with our senses are what we have to decide how we organize our sense of life. We decide those definitions. We create religions at times that reflect when our science wasn't up to snuff. We often use science to justify, validate our hypothesis about being. We used our building awareness as cultures and civilizations to find our connection in the physical and non-physical realms of environment and thought. And the ability to manipulate our lives in certain ways started to develop, either through physical means or in harnessing and using non-physical means. Like a body full of cells, so are we with other humans within the consciousness core. We are relation-based creatures sharing on this planet Earth. In a healthy body, all of it works together as a whole, no matter the limitation of the parts. Each is specific to the working of the whole. Our life form must be appreciated, held in awe of how it constantly strives to be in a harmonious state of balance. We make assumptions, take things for granted, consider ourselves successful and independent these days, free of the whole of mankind, planet Earth, and the cosmos. Not possible. We question whether we make differences in being alive. We play at life and see disconnect between actions and outcomes in our lives and our environments around us, putting one before another. We seem to have put aside what our ancestors learned and passed on to us through our genes, that life is precious. To learn from our past and let it help guide us in our futures. To recognize what might look different is only a different aspect of the totality of life. that we are so small and how to find comfort in that and not fear. We will always use our emotions to guide us. They are the flavoring life has to offer. We will think about what we feel. Often, they would seem to control us in attitudes, world visions, and how we each are in the world. All of this creates a body of awareness and form. Our stories and DNA give us reasons and justifications for positions in the relation with ourselves and others. It leads to the awareness that there is something that humans can't do. We can conceive life, we can birth life, but we can't manufacture the spark we call life. We can only create it from existing living tissue. It is unique in the cosmos, this human form, and our fellow living creatures, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist in different forms, in different times and places. Now is the time to stop. Breathe. Put a sock on the monkey mind and give it a rest. Breathe. Release the pressure you find inside in being you. Breathe. Re-engage. And this time you are doing it from within yourself and listening to your truths. Not those projected truths, those surface to fit in truths, but from your essence, consciousness, which is aware on a whole different level about the wholeness of being and all its elements. We are each just one of the many in this cosmic soup, holding this core of consciousness in form. This week's consciousness cookies are all about heart, bits of wisdom that have come across the ages from different sources, different people. The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. Helen Keller. Put your heart, mind, and soul into even your smallest acts. This is the secret of success. Swami Sivanananda. Whatever we are waiting for, peace of mind, contentment, grace, the inner awareness of simple abundance, it will surely come to us, but only when we are ready to receive it with an open and grateful heart. Sarah Bon Brethnak. It is when our thinking comes from our heart as consciousness and not mind do we unfold and expand into being. Janet Barrett. Today's episode is going to be all about these terms: heart-centered awareness, field of unified consciousness, and reality being what you set it up to be. It is our starting place. Sometimes language can get in our way of understanding how a word is being used, the range of meanings that a word holds, different inflections, and how we hear it to our ear all come into play. As energy expressions, they are powerful in generating states of awareness. Here are some featured words in this episode that may be used in new contexts. Consciousness, heart-centered awareness, field of unified consciousness. Basically, there are two different frameworks in our human thinking. The first is, I think, therefore I am, and I can notice myself in my world. This is the typical frame of reference when one is mind-oriented. This is self, which is the human interface of consciousness. When we are more in the state of being, we are relating to ourselves and the world out of our core as consciousness. Consciousness is the state of potential and energy that is present everywhere. We can access it as a playground when we engage it from within our quantum world realities. Our terms can be interchangeable. Heart-centered awareness gives us a place to center in. It is not just a concept without body to it. I have found that for many of my clients and fellow explorers, that in our religions and spiritual practices, there was conflict in how we connected and how we experienced ourselves as the infinite. Locating this within us, not outside of us, brings all into focus in new ways. It is within where our connection to the infinite essence, the all, is to be found. Spirit, body, mind enjoy a new orientation. Consciousness does not judge. It is. Anything else is in the realm of self and its emotions. All falls within the realm of the consciousness core. It is not a creation of mind, but how we interact with it as self. Human bodies form just like rocks, gas, trees, and your pet, or the guy across the street, or our cosmos, and it's all within the core. The mind, our thinking, sentient state, develops in a shared state of reference that can be forgotten in this physical realm of contrast. We are each unique individuals sharing within this collective field of unified consciousness. Morphic field. A morphic field is a collective point of references created over time and by persons of beliefs to describe informational states. They can be truthful or not. Think like urban myths and social media. They include in them a spectrum of feelings, energies, and thoughts, subject to change and interpretation. They become powerful if sustained and can shape reality. It is about how they can affect us and how we relate to them. 3 meanings of heart. Heart can be a tricky word for people at times, but you want to remember there's 3 meanings to the word heart. The first one is the physical heart, the feeling self. That's the mechanism, the heart. It has to beat in order to indicate life, right? Second meaning is emotional terrain, and this is the self feeling the world around it and how it relates to it. And a lot of people don't like their emotions or are comfortable with them, so that can get in the way. But the third meaning of heart is core, essence of all, which is consciousness. And all work together and in different ways. We will always be trying and be clear with you where we're referencing from. And along this journey with me, you want to be noticing what context you hold this in. How comfortable are you with hearing the word heart? For if it's a trigger word, it might direct you differently than what might be intended. So just notice your comfort, and along the way, if you have any charge on any of it, we'll be clearing that. Grace, warmth, support, non-judgment. Sounds good. What would it feel like? The stillness that is present as consciousness is full of grace. It is what we hold to be real. Homologous. In biology, it is body parts that look alike but have different functions. They only share appearance. It is what our minds will do as shortcuts. Lump things together that only have a look shared, and then beliefs and behaviors and thinking get locked in that may have nothing to do with anything. Centering, anchoring, grounding. Most of us are familiar with anchoring and how it is about putting down a weight to hold oneself in place, like the ship's anchor. But we use the term in metaphysical trainings and such. Grounding is anchoring oriented. Centering is more about having a sense of place within, and it is what one expresses from. We walk upon the earth, not anchored to it, or we wouldn't go very far, and we certainly don't want to be grounded to it. Dancing lightly in our humanity is a centering experience in above, below, and in between, in here, out there. Information, stuff, and the power of labels. Labels define. They are helpful, and then they are not. They are limits and containers of thoughts and feelings. When you take the label off of something, you are then playing by different rules. You are allowing yourself to notice, not project, not assume, about the energy and potential available in new ways. Stuff can be a good word to then use, as it has no distinctions in the judgments that labels offer. Information is what our stories collect and forms perceptual biases and viewpoints and patterns that form a state of reality.
Sometimes the world seems very dark. When you are away from the light, it's easy to forget that somewhere the sun shines. The darkness of despair can seem impenetrable. We forget that as lighting a candle dispels the darkness, an act of love illuminates the soul. Light and love seem to work on similar principles. Just as darkness ceases to exist in the presence of light, negative emotions like anger, hate, fear, and despair are dissolved in the presence of love. When you touch an unlit candle to a burning wick, the lighted candle shares its light and warmth without being diminished. When we share the love in our heart, it warms those near us and kindles love in them as well. We lose nothing in the process, but are further brightened by their shining forth. Love is pure. Like light, it can take on different hues, but real love contains no impurities. We can close our eyes to it or obscure it with the smoke of negativity, but like the light of a distant star, it can reach across the vastness of space and time. To perceive the light of universal love, we must open the eyes of our soul. We can practice opening to the light and practice sharing our light with others. So try this. Sit quietly. Allow your muscles to relax. Let your breathing come easily. Bring your attention to the area of your heart. And notice any sensations you may have there. Notice any images that come to mind as you focus on your heart region. As sensations, images, or thoughts arise, just notice them and let them go. No need to cling to them. No need to analyze them. Just breathe calmly and relax. Imagine in the center of your chest, in the area of your heart, a small point of light. Perhaps you'll imagine this as the flame of a candle. Focus on this light for as long as you like. Bring it into clear mental focus. Imagine that this light in you is the light of love. This is pure love. As a pure white light encompasses all colors, this love in you encompasses the full spectrum of love. Notice any reluctance to experiencing light and love. Without self-blaming, acknowledge the resistance and turn back to the image of a point of light. In your mind, open the curtains, lift the shades, disperse the smoke that may be hiding the light. Love and light seek to shine forth. Let them do what they do naturally. Feel the warmth of this light. Imagine the light spreading through your body. Feel the warmth of compassionate love spreading through your body and spirit. Allow yourself to enjoy the beauty of light and love. And let the light grow stronger and brighter until you are filled with pure white light. Let the love in your heart expand in the light. Extend your loving kindness to yourself first. Allow love to penetrate all negative emotions that you may have accumulated. Let the love dissipate negativity. Let it shine through the sadness and hurt. Let your pain evaporate like a mist. Fill up with what is good. Flood your being with compassion. When you've imagined yourself filled with light and love, notice how the light and love shine out from your being into the world. Let your love shine upon the people that are closest to you. Let it shine on the people you encounter in your comings and goings. Let it shine beyond the scope of your normal awareness. Let your love and your light expand to include all beings. Let your love and light mix with the love in the hearts of all those other compassionate beings in the world who love and share their light. As the light of each star in the sky shines on every other star, the light of all who love illumines each of us. Take comfort that even when you sleep, even when you forget yourself, universal love persists. The sun does not go out when the world turns away from it. Love does not go out when we fail to experience it. Practice opening to your light, opening to your heart of loving kindness. As you go about your days and nights, remember to shine upon those around you. Share your light. Share your love.
How about we just be here a moment and just take a breath? And that's the delight of the podcast, is that we're not limited to having to fill what seems to be empty space, because no space is empty. It is filled with the information. You just don't notice it in the same way. So here's a story for you. In the beginning, there was God, consciousness. And then there was a bunch of stuff that happened. And in the long run, many, many, many seasons later, man showed up. And the truth is that everything is within the core of consciousness. We tend to think in terms that core is small, but in reality, everything is held within. Now, humans have the ability to hold awareness of this core. And I don't know that that's just limited to us. It's just at the vibratory levels that we register. So, and let's call that core consciousness. Why not? Here we are. You can call it cabbage if you want. In tuning in, there is active life. There is the stillness in creation. There are so many different flavors below the surface of our daily lives. And what self has determined is how we're playing. So just take a moment and just breathe. And I'll share with you, you may do this very quickly. You may do this as a process. You may do rituals, and those are all wonderful things. What I want to share with you is how we can appreciate those same dynamics and put it in a state of potential. Because we know that from the science that that's what quantum realities are about. That things are, things aren't. Things are, things aren't. And what's the difference that happens in that blink? So just notice. I use the word heart-centered awareness. And I know a lot of people don't like the word heart. And if you look at that, it's because they're holding the reference that heart means emotions. And for a lot of people, that's a tricky place. They have a lot of conditions and issues around it. And so this isn't about that. I want you to just relax, take a moment, just notice. And I'm going to use the word notice because we are much more than thinking. We are sensory. So in just being able to relax and focus, and we'll give it this kind of ritual for this, but I must admit, me and my friends, we do this all the time, and there's no really, that veil is very, very thin if you want to think it in those terms. Just notice what it's like to breathe. So we start with heart. And we got 3 definitions of the word heart. And the first one is that heart is a physical heart. And I like the word heart because it gives us some place to anchor, center to. When you think about God or source and those wonderful words, it can feel like that's out there. And what I want you to appreciate is that it is all within you. There's no out there. There's only in here, in this. So just notice you have a heart. And it's kind of central. And the heart is a fascinating organ because it's the first one that develops in the body. So we appreciate the heart. It is the center to everything. So in just noticing you have a heart, and what do you notice how you feel about your heart? What do you think about your heart? Just let go of that a little bit and just hold the awareness, thank you, grateful, appreciation. Because that heart beats, whether you notice it or not, you are alive. If the heart does not beat, we would be having this conversation in a different term. So just notice. It may feel compromised. It may feel constricted. It may feel lots of different things. Those are just feelings. Go back to the fact that your heart beats. Let that be a centering. Now, I'm going to use the word centering a lot as opposed to anchor because it puts things in a different context. So let's go with it. Just feel the centering, that is center core to everything, and get what that feels like. And just breathe. And you don't have to do anything. This isn't about performance art. It's okay if your mind drifts because that's just information floating around. Sometimes it's important, sometimes not. There's no way you can do any of this incorrectly. You do it the way that's available to you. Now, that can change, but start. Because for me, what if there was no judgment, only warmth, support, non-judgment? That's what grace is. So, no agendas. You don't have to do anything or be anywhere or anything other than just be present. So whatever that means to you, just notice that. There we go. Now I'm tracking this, and you may say, well, no one else is there, but trust me, I can feel that. You can feel that. You just may not hold the degree of awareness that I do. But we're all one. There's no getting out of it. We're all within this core. So whether you choose to embrace it as your reality or not determines how you experience life and information. I choose to embrace that we're all one. So there we go. So just notice. So that's physical. Now the second meaning of heart is emotional terrain. And so what if it's okay that you have emotions? Whoa, that might be a novel thought for a lot of people. What if they are the spices to the soup that this life is about? Just notice. There you go. And just notice what emotions might be up and running in this moment. You probably have more than one. There you go. Just relax. No need to judge it. No need to think a certain way about how you feel. You might feel uncomfortable. You might feel very relaxed. You might not even be hearing my voice anymore. All those are totally appropriate in the spectrum of being. So just notice. Come to a place where you can notice emotions and your blood pressure stays the same. So just breathe. There we go. Now, along the way, you might be developing awareness of those things around you and how in sync or out of sync you are with them, how reactive or non-reactive you are. And so you just notice it. It's just information. And I'm going to use the word information and stuff a lot because I appreciate the value of the word label. And when labels are really useful, and then they're not, because they lock us into a perception about something. and it may be homunculus. Oh, I love that word. If I could only say it, where things look alike, but they have a different function. And that gets tricky. So just because it looks and feels like that doesn't mean it is or it is. So we'll just let that go. And then what is our third meaning? Heart. And that's core, essence of all. And that's where we step off. So just notice. There you go. Just notice what it'd be like to just step out of in some way. And what that might entail. And it's kind of like Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail. That wonderful scene at the end where he's got to get across. And he has got to, they're going to use the term believe, that there's something to step into because it looks like an abyss to him. And once he does step out, there from a different angle, you see the bridge that was there. If you're hitting it straight on, you don't see it. But if you just turn a bit, there it is. That's kind of what this feels like for me often. So what it's like to just step out without any guarantees. This is the role of the fool in the tarot deck, who leaves with just his little bag of goodies and his innocence, and he starts wandering. And innocence is a wonderful place to be. We're always innocent, no matter our experience. You can't lose your innocence. What you do is you gain experience. So it shapes that, but we always have at our core. Because if you can appreciate a smile from another person, you have your innocence. And we see it demonstrated all the time. So just notice what it'd be like to step off and feel what that feels like. There you go. There we go. It's really easy. And some of us may flutter around a little bit, and some of us may have a sense of, oh, I'm going to fall, and just keep going with it and see what happens. Because look at your right hand and look at your left hand. And notice the space in between your hands and around your hands. And that is as full of information, just in a different encoding than what you think of as your hands. And when you do that, all of a sudden I can feel my palms start to react differently. Because I'm acknowledging that they're interacting with other information. So I can have a sensory experience of energy. And when I'm doing that, I'm really having a sensory experience of potential. Because potential and energy go hand in hand. And the continuum is potential, energy, potential when you realign yourself in consciousness technologies. Most of us tend to think of energy, oh yeah, something could be different, and we go back to energy, when it's really a different setting. So in consciousness, all we feel is this potential, and then the energy is present. So energy is something that has form. We recognize it. We have an experience of it. We have a sensory experience of it. And we want to also appreciate here our ability to know, which is claircognizance. When you have no information, you just know. And that is a huge gift. Doesn't mean you have to have logic and reason and rationale behind it. That's all left brain. We're talking about the art of whole brain. We're talking about the right brain, which is opens to this heart state as consciousness, sees all in patterns and in stories. And then that wonderful little bridge, that corpus callosum, you go across to the left brain, which is all about creating and manifesting what the right brain has said to be true. So It's the interaction of our imagination and all kinds of different things. And so both are within us as everything, consciousness and self. Both are within us. So just notice how you're feeling, what you're noticing about life. Oh, it's always nice to be here. Now, I sense that as calm, the quiet, the stillness. I don't come out of traditions of meditation or Buddhism, things like that. I come out of metaphysical trainings. Not so much trainings, just experience. My metaphysical skill sets were really what got me through life. So, but they also conditionalize the life, right? So there's always the two sides to everything. And so just notice what it means to be present. And whatever this experience is for you, right in this moment, is the experience it is for you. Now, what will happen over time is that you deepen and enriches, you let go of things, you experience different things. And that's kind of the fun, because not as in the ritual or the dogmas that different practices can encompass, but in the sense of just being aware, tuned in, and not necessarily in the way that our first responder, for instance, or any of us who have a sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, and the system, the bodies need to survive and be alive, and so it has to be safe. And so we have these systems that are finely tuned, and they're so finely tuned we can't appreciate how tuned they are in recognizing threat. So, and how it responds to threat. Fight, flight, or freeze. All of them are wonderful adaptations that you can call on. Challenges where we get stuck in one or another, or where they're firing and they don't need to fire. There is no fire, literally. So in just noticing, I don't want to get too taken away. Just appreciate that you have a nervous system. So that does allow for you to experience information. You do have all your metaphysics, I'm going to call it clairsentience and clairaudience and I don't know, all the different clairs. They're there. I just experience them. Titles aren't so important to me at times. So just appreciate that you have higher abilities. And that just means they're have a different state of awareness about them. That's kind of a given. Now, a lot of people are very logical, and I so appreciate logic because I realize how important it is in daily life and how it's something to be played with in that malleable quality. Logic is malleable, like time and space. And humans are oriented, physicalness is oriented around time and space, where in quantum realms, it's a different game. And I was trained that time and space are outside of consciousness or are not present. And I don't think that's true. I think what it is, it's a different sense of time and space. And that when we interact, since we are so multidimensional kind of creatures, that we're interacting with different times and spaces all in one moment. So you can call upon, access, become part of, navigate different realities all at the same time. And we all are, whether we're conscious of it or not, because to be that conscious at times can be pretty distracting. So we have to filter it down. And that's just the way it's supposed to be, and then it's there when you need it. So we walk through our daily lives, and some of us dance in our daily lives, and some of us float in our daily lives, and whatever it is, some of us trudge through our daily lives. And so this is about some leavening to that. So just notice how you're doing. There we go. You might feel some constriction, but I'm not noticing that too much right in this moment. And in my reality, so time and space are malleable. So you're listening to this. I'm recording this at a certain time. You're going to listen to it at a different time. And it's all present. So in being present, there is no past. There is no future. It's what happens in the blinks of the eye. And it's about letting go for something different to happen. And you can only do that when you're present, free of your story. Because the past is our story. And that's okay. We all have a past. And we all have a future that has not yet happened, but most of us live in the future and not the present. We forget that this is the space, this is the place where we connect as consciousness to that awareness within us about the patterns and the vibrations and the frequencies and the information and the photons and the light photons and the biophotons with a little mass, and how on a scientific level the awareness of how we are in our world is operating. And that intersection of where we let ourselves be that affects how self shows up. Because self is always just a bias. It's a collection of perceptual biases that have been set and are malleable. But they put us into a certain part of spectrums of states of awareness. And you may spend a lifetime exploring just one little point. Or you may experience a lifetime in a moment of lots of different points. All is possible. So just keep noticing. Notice if you're edgy, or notice if you're uncomfortable, and just love it. And I'm going to just say love it, because get over it. Which can sound kind of cruel, I suppose. But the truth is, anything where your attention goes become more. So as we just notice it, okay, so I noticed my toe ache, for instance. So what about your other toe? We have several other toes. What do? They feel pretty good. But my toe is aching. So what do you notice about your toe? And just inviting information to be present. That fleeting thought. It's often the fleeting ones. It's not the ones that pound at you. It's the fleeting one that tickles us is where the information is. But we've got ourselves pretty well trained to put up with stuff, keep pursuing, keep going onward, being self-reliant, self-independent, all those wonderful things. And this is where it catches us, because we don't notice something before it becomes a symptom, where we had lots of notice. We don't notice the pattern we're engaged in behavior, because we've got a mindset now that says this is the way truth is. And it's not a truth. What it is, it's a perception that you're holding, a bias that says this is what life is. So just notice. Okay, just a deep breath. And so what's here? Let's notice what's here. You may find yourself not even tracking this anymore, because this may be a place that you don't visit often, and it just brought a release. That's great. You'll wake up at some point. And whatever we start here will continue on, because that's the state of awareness I hold about it. That's the state of awareness all of us hold about it, as that life continues until it doesn't. So what else might I share with you about this starting point? What comes to mind is the thought about how we set up our reality states. And we'll get into this in the next couple of episodes about those core. Life is hard. Things happen. Death and taxes are real. There's all that. That's all morphic field information. Morphic fields being those places where we've collectively put conscious thought into, probably pretty much unconscious thought, a lot of emotion. And it starts to generate its own thing because it has consciousness in it and it's created. So it has creative energy to it. And now it's a thing. It's a belief system. It's something you can partake in and you can be lost in. And the truth is, it's not your truth. Now, we can't change what has happened in the past. We change how we relate to it. So I'm not saying all those things that have happened didn't happen. What I'm saying is that how I relate to that is my choice. And at those times when it didn't feel like there was any choice, and that I didn't feel like I was in power and there was a choice, and it's okay to be in this place. You appreciate our creativity. And what we create is not always pretty. It doesn't always feel good. It can kill you. That's the power. And so we can feel powerless, and that's just how we've organized how we're experiencing. You know, that fight or flight thing, and there's always something bigger. And some of us are prey, some of us are hunter, and we can get into all those mindsets about what self is and how we are human and where we are on the food chain and all that. And one thing indigenous people always appreciated was how they related to everything and how everything related to them. And that there was this exchange that went on. There was a deep appreciation always. And that's what we want to get back to. That's what's within each of us. But we can get very distracted by the day-to-day and whatever chaos that lives on the surface of a wave. But you'll notice that an ocean is deep. And it's only the surface that can be the waves and the chaotic energy. And deep underneath, there is just such a beautiful space to be in. And I'm hoping on one of these episodes that my friend in Guatemala, and she leads tours with dolphins and whales. And we had her on my other show, Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, at one point. And she brought us the awareness, and see if you can notice this, about the blue whale. And the heart, the physical size heart of a blue whale is the size of a Volkswagen Bug. So hold your hand out. Your heart, your physical heart will fit in that. Now, picture it next to a Volkswagen Bug. Yeah, there you go. So think what it'd be like to be present in that heart. And when you just access, so we're not saying you have to get into it, whatever, just access into your awareness that your heart is bigger. And you get into the rhythm of that blue whale and how his experience of reality is so different. It has to be. It is. What we think we witness of that whale is very different than his interior space. So just notice. What does that blue whale notice with a heart that size? It's taking in that information. And when you get into consciousness technologies and quantum physics and all that, which I am no expert at, but I dabble with, of course, you become aware. Let's see. I just got off track. Okay, you become aware. What the hell do you become aware of? You become aware of, there we go. Yeah. Oh, there's so many things here, everyone. You're doing a marvelous job. There's so much to share with you in my limited sort of way. There we go. But I think the key is that you will find it here. I won't have to say it. We won't have to have words. You'll feel it. And I think it's more important to realize what you're feeling as opposed to what you're thinking. And that's where the memory is. So just notice what you're feeling. What is important to someone with a heart the size of a Volkswagen Bug? Here we go. What does one have access to? What does one value? What does one appreciate? What does one create? There's such a gift in that for all of us. Yeah, we're getting there. I can feel the deepening. Now, I register that in a physical way. You may register it differently. But that's what's so exciting about consciousness and the diversity, the myriad of ways that we experience life. And there's a vibration and frequency in everything. And whether it's a rock, it has a certain vibratory range, it has a certain level of awareness, and it's probably beyond different than human reference. And we can be very arrogant creatures in saying everything has to fall within our thinking. And that's a trap. Nothing has to fall within our thinking because we can see how we trap things. So we all value freedom. It's very interesting. Freedom is what we know when we're not in a form. And most of us feel being in a body is a trap. So, because the physical realms are all about contrast. And then if you have contrast, you're into conflict often. And that's kind of like what humanity lives in, a state of contrast and conflict. So, as we navigate that, just bring this massive heart to it. Now, think of lots of blue whales. What happens there? That's how powerful we each are. What would be different in your life in just being present and you accessing this, that everything is changing around you? What do you know to be your truth? You can feel how it's not your emotions. You can feel how it's not your neighbor next door or who's in office. This is this deep level of life. And we're such dabblers, majority of us. But not you and I. See, we know that everything is all right because this is at our core. And that what shows up on the surface is self. It's just very reactive to lots of different things, and it's a way we're creative and play. And life goes on, and life doesn't, and life goes on, and life doesn't. And those are really the rules. So just notice. And let's just enjoy this state for as long as you need to. It is always present. And would it be like to just be up, walking around, and this awareness is still present? So that's the setup, all right? And we took time to get there. Now, the fun is when you can feel what this feels like, because that is this moment, and what you feel in the next moment. And so notice this moment and what you feel like, and then have another moment. And notice if you feel the same. And then have another moment. And at some point, you may feel this start to shift. Conditions, other information starts to come into play. Does that mean this is still not there? No, it just has slipped from your awareness. So go back to this awareness and now have that talk. Now go shop. And as you interact with the clerk or your boss or your comrade in arms, whatever it might be, this is still present. And notice if those interactions start to show up differently. Because I guarantee they will, as you allow yourself to notice what's present. So I'm going to leave you with that because I think that's a great place to end this. So just notice what you feel like in this moment, and whatever it is what it is, and it's what it becomes, and where this will take you. And I hope you'll join me again. And we'll do it in a whole different way the next time. Every show will start from this place, but we'll condense it way down. So I wanted to make sure that you had a sense of what information is present. Now, and in noticing, before you come way too back up, notice how the difference between what you think from a state of mind and what you feel. And this is what's really important to start paying attention to. All those times when you had a hit, a gut reaction, something, and you went on, and then you come back to that moment of awareness once you're in it, that you had that moment that said, and you didn't pay attention. You rationalized and reasoned over your feeling. And it was really this essence that was talking to you, that was paying attention for you. And you're going to bring more awareness to how we can help ourselves. And that this is always available. And so those times when you don't listen become less, and your world starts to realign itself, that you could be in your truth. And that'll be about those core rules that we have for how life has to be. And so once you start to play with that, which will be a lot of fun, it's about how that can all be different. And that's a change in how you think something is. So we all appreciate the limits of being and in form, because it's the limits that we don't have when we're out of form. That's what we call freedom. So we will always be connected to things. We're relation-based creatures. So everything has an orientation about placement and direction, where we are in relation to another. And you have your proprioception system in your body, and you have it on all the different levels that are your interface with others and as consciousness. So just relax, shake it out, and appreciate being alive. And thanks for joining me today. Thank you for joining me here at Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet. You can continue to join us every 2 weeks here on the CTR network. You can post any questions or comments there, or email me directly at janetandbeyondpodcast.com. For more information about all the elements that make up each episode, they are on my podcast page at my website, www.janetandbeyond.com. You will also find information there about my other podcast show, Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and about my work with clients. You can sign up to receive my regular weekly blog, Life in the Beyond, Journeys into Enlightenment. You will also find out about the Fuzzy Photons playground groups I offer. Live interactive space via Zoom video conferencing on your favorite device on Thursdays. If you're looking for other regular opportunities to sit in heart-centered awareness with others and explore life, you will find it here. You can follow each episode of this podcast series on my YouTube channel, Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Till the next time, feel the difference in this moment. It is real, and it can last a lifetime.